All right, the Public Works Commission is conducting this meeting June 25th, 2025 at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on the Zoom platform and in person. This meeting is being recorded and will be available for later viewing on the town's website. I, Andrea Solomon, hereby call this meeting to order. We will start with the attendance of the commissioners. As all commissioners are unable to attend in person, please reply and state if you are present and whether you are attending in person or remotely. As all commissioners are not physically present, any actions today will require a roll call vote. So I'll start with Sven Weber,
Here in person.
Gretchen Rohraback,
Here on video.
Christine Reynolds.
Here, remote.
Okay, and Dave DeLong is not here, but maybe joining us in person a little later. So we'll start with the review approval of minutes from May 14th, 2025, the Public Works Commission. On the Public Works Commission meeting. Are there any comments on those minutes from the commissioners?
I have none.
I had none.
I have
Gretchen?
one
Okay,
under D5, snow and ice removal. I was wondering if in the bottom line of the first paragraph, date X, I didn't know if we actually wanted to put the date in there at this point.
Oh, thank you. Let me see. Oh, yeah. Where is the, say it again? E5. Oh, right at the
D5,
bottom.
first paragraph, last line. You have parentheses dated X because you didn't know the date when they wrote up the minutes.
Oh. Yeah, thank you. I need to confirm what date that was, but I will make that adjustment accordingly. Okay?
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, thank you for catching that.
And Dave DeLong has just joined us in person. So
Sorry.
we're Gretchen
Welcome,
and
Dave.
Christine online. And no problem. Did you have any comments on the minutes from last?
No.
Okay. All right, so do I have a motion to accept these minutes?
Yeah, so I move to accept the minutes subject to the little editorial change we just discussed.
Okay,
I'll
second.
second. I'll
All
second.
right, and then I'll do a roll call vote. So I'll start with Sven Weber,
Aye.
Aye.
Dave DeLong,
Aye.
Gretchen Rohraback,
Aye.
Christine Reynolds,
Aye.
and Andrea Solomon, aye. All right, so that's unanimous. All right, we'll review the calendar. We get off for the summer.
We're hoping, so just as we generally do over the summer, at least a short summer for July and August, unless there is really anything, pressing. We tend to take those months off. You'll see that we started populating the calendar in the fall. The most notable, items that are gonna be coming up in the fall are gonna be solid waste recycling, rate hearing, we've identified, and we've also acknowledged that we're gonna come back with a stormwater enterprise update. And I can just share that we're gonna be building budgets in August and September, a little bit earlier this year, so there may be a need to sort of make some accommodations for a review of where we are with our capital planning first. And then the operating budget. So those are kind of, teeing things up. But at this point, we're looking to take July and August off.
So there was nothing from CCHS on the toilets yet? So
We have not heard anything. There's an update. They are doing some additional work on their side. So they will circle back with us as, time allows. If there's some need, pressing, then we can consider if we need to regroup.
okay, and then the other question, would it make sense, I know, for the October to have an update on the road and sidewalk?
Yeah, it's just that we'll pencil it in, but
Yeah.
we know we're gonna be, that's gonna be one of the keys in our capital planning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Specifically around prioritization and so on, and by
Sure.
then we probably have to better load in if we have the money.
Well, that's it. We need to make sure we have the funds. Correct.
Okay, so we will move on to public comments, and we usually we allow speakers to speak about 2 to 3 minutes. We'd like you to identify yourself by your name, your address, if you do live in Concord, at least let us know that much. And I know we have Miss Safi Hashemi has asked to speak. So please go ahead. Yes, you can sit up here if you'd like. Yeah, absolutely.
Dear Madam Chair and members of the Public Works Commission, thank you for granting me 3 minutes to be heard today, June 25th, 2025. 40 Woodland Road, West Concord is the only property I own and reside in with my daughter Doherty. I was not informed at time of zoning board approval in 2024, nor construction permit issuance in 2025 that the water line regulation applies to my much needed renovation. My current state is that water, a necessity, will not be restored to my residence unless I carry the expense of not only the private water line replacement on my property, but also the town's public water line per town specification on the street. To date, I have spent over 15 hours on gathering information from the Water Department, Public Works, and obtaining quotes from town-approved vendors, which vary widely. The homeowner is expected to navigate this process. Estimate 1, over $10,000, 3,500 house to driveway shut off, and $5,850 to dig up the street and connect the main water line on Woodland Road. Estimate 2, over $20,000, including $8,500 from house to driveway shut off and $10,500 to dig up the street and connect to the water main. Additional costs are $950 permit fee, police detail, and replacement of the excavated driveway. Please consider the following. Are you willing to assess the real impact of the water main tie portion of this regulation on Concord homeowners? I cannot be the first household coming before the commission since it was approved on May 9th, 2018. Would you consider expense sharing for the public infrastructure portion of this instead of transferring the entire cost to the homeowner and taxpayer? Proposed for your decision as a commission are the following. Can the $950 permit be reduced? Can skilled labor from the water department be deployed for laying down the public portion or other tasks to defray costs of this water main replacement since capabilities exist in town? Has Concord considered a tax rebate for individual homeowners who have had to vacate their home for construction and are covering the significant cost of public infrastructure improvement, which is done per town specification? If not, why not? In most towns in Massachusetts, water line main replacement is covered by collective tax dollars. In Concord, we as homeowners are taking on the burden of cost, time, and implementation of a regulation, which I understand originally was devised to address the shortcuts of residential developers flipping houses in our town. Please respond. I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Ms. Hashemi. Thank you for that. So because this is a public comment that wasn't on our agenda, we can't discuss it, but we can certainly look at it at a later time and possibly have it on our agenda. But I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, I would be curious.
Mhm,
Mhm.
to have it
Yeah.
in the future, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for providing the information.
Yeah.
Helpful.
Yes, thank you. Is there any other public comment?
Bob, can you see anything online?
This
We
would
have
be
no one.
regarding. Okay,
Linda
go ahead,
Neiman.
Bob.
Okay,
Yeah, Linda Neiman's got her hand raised.
okay.
Okay,
I'm just gonna read the letter that I submitted earlier this week, just to have it on record and on the video. This letter was addressed to the Concord Town Manager, Select Board, Public Works, and several other town entities. Dear Public Works, drive like your kids live here is a common sign posted in neighborhoods. The assumption that underlies this admonition is that reckless humans are the sole cause of crashes by driving poorly or not being alert while walking or biking. But the third actor in a crash is never mentioned: road design. When a crash occurs, we should ask, how can this location be modified to prevent the next crash? Because another crash will inevitably occur without action. The most recent incident on Uplands Road, where a runner with her dog was struck by a driver, is on a stretch of road known to be dangerous to pedestrians. Neighbors have petitioned the town for many years for road calming to slow drivers, without any concrete action beyond a cut-through study. The Williams Road crash a couple months back has had no temporary measures put in place, so that even at the time of the writing of this letter on June 19th, young girls unaware of the danger had set up a lemonade stand at the same location. So, what can be done? We must create solutions that account for human behavior, acknowledging that we all make mistakes. No one leaves their house intending to be struck by a car, nor does a driver intend to hurt their neighbor. We must consider road and intersection design if we want to truly make Concord safe for walkers and bikers. Mothers Out Front Concord calls on you to lead by prioritizing safety for walkers and bicycles by establishing a crash response team to walk the crash site within 48 hours to determine the root causes of a crash and to identify effective short and long-term responses. Rapid temporary measures could be as simple and low cost as orange safety cones for traffic calming. We can look to our town neighbor, Bedford, for inspiration. They put up temporary traffic safety delineator posts after the death of a Concord resident at the Reformatory Branch Trail crossing with Route 62 last summer, while the permanent fix is explored. Mothers Out Front Concord urges town staff to gather input from residents. We know the dangerous areas in our neighborhood where we don't let our children play. Finally, we ask that Public Works, with the approval of the town manager and leadership, act decisively, prioritizing safety for walkers and bicycles in all infrastructure projects instead of relying solely on uncertain future grant funding. We know that walking and biking are one of the easiest and most effective ways to reduce our impact on the climate while reaping the numerous benefits of a healthy activity. We should make it easy and safe for residents to choose walking or biking for short errands or to take their children to the park. Let's design roads like our kids live here. Their lives depend on it. Thank you for your time on this important issue. And we look forward to hearing a response. And I realize I didn't say my name and address. Linda Neiman, 59 Mallard Drive. I'm co-coordinator of Mothers Out Front Concord. Thank you.
Point.
Oh, yeah, you
Yeah.
can ask a question.
Hey Linda, Sven here, quick question. Did you, talk with the traffic management group, which is under the lead of the police on these things?
No, I have not yet, but we will be contacting them. And I know that there's a police report and all that happens, but I think what we're looking for is, rapid, like a response to what has happened so that people know that there's been an accident in a location and that it may not be safe right there, and to do something in the short term rather than wait for, like a study to be performed and a grant funding to be approved, which usually doesn't happen for several years.
Okay, thank you, Linda.
And then just for us here, I think this is what we will run into in these examples and others, specifically now that we have the money.
When
don't
we have the
have the
money.
money.
Yeah, we don't have the money yet. Yeah,
But
but we have to find a way how we prioritize
Mhm.
these things, and given we have traffic management group, tech, and us, we have to think about the right structure.
process,
Because for citizens, it's tough to figure out
Mhm.
who to address and who's the one responsible, saying, okay, short-term measures versus long-term measures and so on. We
Correct,
Have
yeah.
to find a good process.
Yep.
Sorry.
We do. Is there any more public
Any other
comments?
comments, Bob? Any other hands?
No,
raised?
there is not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'll go ahead with my comments. I have comments.
Commissioner.
Commissioner comments, chair comments. We'll start with me. And then we'll go on to commissioners. But I did want to, first of all, thank Sven for his fearless leadership as our outstanding chair the last year, because I'm sure my fellow commissioners know, attends select board meetings, FinCom meetings, many other meetings, and he is out there making sure that they're aware of what our plans are, especially for town meeting warrant articles. And that is so important because it keeps us aware of what their concerns are, and it keeps us in their loop, like, of concerns and conversation and that back and forth, which helps us prepare for town meeting, which he also worked closely with Alan and Steve about getting those presentations down succinctly and to answering a lot of questions during the presentation that had come up previously at the public hearings that investigated those. So because of that, they passed overwhelmingly at town meeting, but we still, in order to get final approval by the town for that roads program that we want so badly to make really important changes to the way we plan those projects. We need that vote for the town election, the special town election, which is August 19th. Mail-in vote, you'll have the ballots that go out, if you want to mail them back in, will be around July 28th. They'll start in-person voting about that time at the townhouse. So please make sure you vote for that if you're at all interested in seeing that come to fruition. And because of that, because of Linda's comments, Linda Neiman's comments and other comments that I heard a lot of when I was at these meetings, our town is in support of this, not only because of their concerns of the roads themselves, but of the safety issues, these safety issues that are piling on, that are resulting in really tragic accidents, both in our town and towns neighboring to us, because of the lack of attention paid to crosswalks. And if you look at towns like Cambridge, Arlington, Somerville, they have made big changes even years and years ago that have helped tremendously with pedestrian safety, and we need to look at that too. And if this gets voted on, we're going to be held accountable. That's going to have to happen. That has to be a priority. So I think that was mostly what I had. Other commissioner comments.
Yeah, so on the Warner's Pond Task Force, we had the final meeting and recommendation document. There were three options the task force in the end looked at is dredging, dam removal, and trying a 5-year program if pulling the invasives out of the pond can be done in a better way. So the recommendation is to set up and try a 5-year program. So for that, there will be the proposal is a new committee, the subcommittee of the NRC. The NRC will have to make a decision, so it's not up to the task force to decide that. There will be discussions to set up that adaptive management plan and to try it. Key was in there, which a certain subgroup of people were just outspoken to that if they are in that time frame or later significant investments on the dam or for either dam repair or potentially fish ladders and so on, that at that time it will be reconsidered if it would be better to remove the dam. But at the moment, the recommendation is that the dam is as it is, and there will be another committee, number 69 or so in town, under the NRC, if the NRC follows that recommendation, to try a 5-year management plan.
And are they presenting that at the next NRC meeting?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
And how is that relevant to us?
Because we are the master of the dam.
Okay,
And if there's major repair or maintenance, that
Yeah, we're responsible
and major
for
defined as,
inspection and operations of the dam and maintenance.
Yeah.
So that's Public Works.
are there,
so major was seen as anything that touches, say, capital budget.
Mhm.
are there any, is there any current status, or does the department have any kind of recent assessment of?
Oh, yeah.
um,
Yeah, there are requirements as far as routine inspections. We've actually created an inspection and operation plan, formalized it so people can look at it and understand what's our expectations. To be clear, we're responsible for the dam and in order to maintain the dam, some of the grounds around it, primarily to manage vegetation. It's not a park. So it's not to maintain it like an active recreation area, it's to maintain it so that structurally it's not compromised. So that was all pretty well vetted as part of the process.
Sven, do they expect that the reduction in invasive species, is there a budget associated with that?
Yeah. Yes. So let's see where this goes. So I think it's for next fiscal year, it's not in the budget, so therefore the rule is the committee should define what they need, then propose a budget for earliest next town meeting.
I see.
Yeah, there were some evaluations of a budget. And of course, that was the lowest cost. If you stack up these three options, the most expensive was dredging.
Mm.
Then dam removal was far distance to that, and if you would assume that you can get Massachusetts dollars for dam removal, would be even lower than that. And then the lowest is more or less the adaptive management plan, because even if you remove the dam, you will have to have some adaptive management plan for the invasive species of the land that is suddenly there. So, in that sense, you will have to have some kind of management plan dollars, no matter what.
And that'll be for the new committee.
That will be for the new committee, yeah.
I have a question. I don't know if it's appropriate now or not about the issue you brought up around the special election in August. Can I ask that, bring that? Is there any recognizing when this is happening, how important it is, and it's happening in a high sort of vacation moment? Is there any plan here to communicate, any campaign to really communicate this this election, the importance of this, the fact that it's happening and the importance of it? Any kind of PR campaign or get the word out campaign about how important that is?
Yeah, I think our interest is to, maintain awareness through obviously working, with the bridge, for instance, people pay attention to that. If they're willing to, have an article, at least to share. There may be an opportunity to do something. The deputy town manager has a new podcast that she's working on. We might be able to, leverage that. But you're right, it's sort of the, the summertime is hard to get a lot of attention.
Right.
But I think we did a lot of push in education in advance. I do think we have to understand also the amenities building is gonna be on the same ballot.
Oh, okay.
So there's
That's
interest.
Way, yeah, right.
So anyway,
Okay,
but it's a good point.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, luckily, the town of Concord makes it easy to vote. Like, if you're registered, you can go in and vote in person, you can get your mail-in ballot, that can all be. So you have lots of chances, but yeah, we should go out and tell everyone.
Talk to your neighbors and friends too.
Right, I'll do that.
Yeah.
The 28th is when the in-person voting starts, right?
July it's around that time. I'm not sure the exact date, but it should be, that's when the mail-in ballots will be mailed to you at your house, or they'll go out to be mailed. And
Oh,
I usually the in-person voting starts at around the same time.
My recollection is that we adopted a process where for ballot votes, the town prepares a pro and a con sheet that goes out to, it's mailed out to voters. So I think there'll also be that people will get in their mailbox. It'll talk about what's on the ballot, and they'll have someone arguing pro and someone arguing con. I don't know if we know who's doing that, Alan, but I believe that's in place now for all ballot votes.
That's good to know, Chris. I will follow up, shortly to make sure we don't miss that opportunity.
and even some kind of email or some mini document, one pager that summarizes, these are the two vote, because we're living it, but the rest of the town, most people don't. And they forget, what's the vote that's coming up and what is it I have to vote on? Just in a paragraph or shorter. I just think it's really important to reiterate the
Yeah,
details.
it is. That's helpful.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any other commissioner comments? No, all right. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing for the water and sewer rates?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, second.
Second.
All right, all in favor of opening the hearing? We'll do a roll call vote. Sven Bieber.
Aye.
David DeLong.
Aye.
Gretchen Rohrbeck.
Aye.
Christine Reynolds.
Aye.
Andrea Solomon, aye. All right, so the hearing is open. So we get a presentation, right?
Sure, I'm gonna introduce Darren LaFollum, who is our new water sewer superintendent. Darren has been with us for, is it about
2 months?
2 months? Yeah, so.
Does it seem like more?
we're very successful in, Darren, was working in a neighboring community as their water superintendent. So he's, sort of taken on a little bit more responsibilities when it comes to wastewater, but is kind of well-known in the industry on the water side. So we're pretty pleased to have him. And with that, you know, I think, I will hand over the reins to Darren, and you all know, and I'm well known for my interest and, you know, passion for water, but I'm eager to take a step back and
We'll
focus
see.
on some
We'll
other
see.
item. We'll see. So, Bob, I just asked for privileges to share. I think you got that. So,
Yes, I did.
all right, thank you. Those should be coming up. All right. Okay, here we go.
Hi, I'm Darren. I was the plant manager of Worcester's 50 million gallon per day filtration plant for a number of years until I moved to Lincoln, became their water superintendent, and I'm happy. I've known Alan in the industry for a number of years, over a decade. And we've been associates, and it's an honor to be here with you folks.
Thank you.
One thing I would like to point out that you can keep in mind throughout this presentation is that it was noticed that we failed to include the AMI opt-out portion of rate schedule in the memo. So I just wanted to know, I believe you'll have a copy that is included in the rates, and it is something we're gonna be asking for your approval on. So just going over our system, our water system consists of 134 miles of water distribution mains with 1,339 hydrants, 2 water storage reservoirs, 2 advanced treatment facilities, NAGOG and Deaconess, well, we've gotten it. 7 pumping stations, 6 groundwater wells, and 1 surface water supply. So there's a lot of infrastructure out there. And please, instead of me talking at you, if anybody has any questions, please jump in at any time. We have some expenditures coming up because we are under some pressures. There are some drivers of these pressures, and a lot of it is regulatory drivers. People may have heard of PFAS in the recent past year. And luckily, there has been planning on this, and our retained earnings is in good shape because it was anticipated by my predecessors that we're gonna have some financial hurdles to come. We also have the bromine issue at NAGOG. Everybody in the country has the lead and copper rule to deal with. Luckily, we have received some SRF funding to help us with that inventory. The Water Management Act, we're expecting our new permit at any time. It's an interesting time to receive your water permits because the state is getting ever more vigilant on conservation. We received mine in Lincoln, and I was part of the Charles River watershed over there. And let's just say that they have a lot of special interest groups involved, and it was an interesting process. So I'm curious to see what they come up with for Concord. Cybersecurity is an ever increasing concern by the day with recent news. And peak water demand in the summertime is an obvious pressure point that we need to work on going forward. This is a breakdown of our expenditures. You can see that of our $6.12 million budget, $3.5 million goes directly towards pumping, treatment, distribution, and storage. A capital improvement plan, you're looking at the beginning of some significant expenditures. Most of the big ticket items that you're looking at here are covering the upfront engineering costs for some big projects to come that we'll outline as we go, and you folks I have a feeling probably have heard of before and are a little bit familiar with.
So can I go back? So in the PFAS, this is for the 2 wells?
The 2 wells.
Yeah.
Second division and U cargo.
Yeah.
Just so you know, the limit nationally is 4 parts per trillion.
Yeah.
The state is still 20 parts per trillion. The state is projected to emulate the national levels in the near future. And we're hovering right around 4 parts per trillion, sometimes over, sometimes under for those 2 wells.
Yeah.
Just keep in mind that not only is there the upfront cost of these projects, but there is the ongoing operational cost increases because you have to replace your activated carbon if that's the media that we end up going with every 12 to 18 to 24 months, and that's not inexpensive. And it could even turn into a cradle to grave disposal situation where we're responsible until it's disposed of.
So the the 3.3 million that's on there for the first two items, that's just engineering or design, am I correct?
Water main replacement is kind of a default number because you need to stay on top of your water main so you don't get behind, because then you're gonna be in a crisis situation and you're gonna be reactive instead of proactive. For a long time, $1 million per mile was kind of the industry standard. Unfortunately, that would be a wonderful thing. That's not the case anymore. 1.4 million maybe represents half a mile, probably not even half a mile nowadays. So that's gonna be a number you see every year. It might go up a little bit. But in the past, the people that have been here have done a good job of keeping up with water main replacement. By comparison, Lincoln, the summer is gonna be tackling Main Street replacement right through the center of town. And that's been their first water main replacement project like ever.
Oh, wow.
So they were not proactive. They're starting to head in that direction now.
Right.
And it's
But
expensive.
Right, but it's full cost for half a mile? An estimate, if you will?
It's just an estimate. It
Yep.
used to be 1 million per mile. Now it's maybe, I don't even think 1.4 million would get you half a mile, but it's gonna depend on the road and how busy it is, how rural it is. You might be able to get a half mile for 1.4 million.
And the PFAS, is that just for engineering or is that actually
That's just-
execution?
No, that's just for the upfront engineering costs
Okay, thank
for
you.
two different plants.
Engineering, maybe some permitting depending on.
And it could also pay for some engineering study work at NAGOG as we continue to figure out how we're gonna proceed up there.
But the 1.9 is just coming out of the 50 million we got approval from last town meeting?
Yes.
This is-
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
You're gonna see a lot of numbers that are under that umbrella.
Okay.
Yep.
Is it worth noting the meter replacement? That's another important, project.
Yep, we have had some, I'm sure you guys have heard about our meters over the past few years. The batteries have been dying. They were not giving any warning that they were dying and we were getting zero reads. So there was water that wasn't accounted for, which raised our unaccounted for water with the state, especially in 2023. On the bright side, when your unaccounted for water goes up, your residential gallons per capita per day goes down, so that makes your regulators a little bit happy. And you can actually see those numbers fluctuate year to year. It's been entertaining to look at those numbers. But we're on top of that now. We're about to go out to bid for water meters, so we can do a wholesale exchange and we can get the state-of-the-art AMI system. One of the huge advantages is that we can see what's happening real time. For example, when we see our tanks dropping during this hot weather, we can see whose water use is jumping up at 4 o'clock in the morning on days that they shouldn't be watering. But it's beneficial to everybody because if somebody has a leak and they're in danger of getting a $2,000 water bill, we're gonna know they have a leak immediately. We're gonna warn them, and hopefully not long down the road, there's gonna be an app for your phone where if you have a water leak at your house, you're gonna get notified immediately. It's gonna be really beneficial if you're away on vacation. And,
Yeah.
So it's gonna be great for everybody to have this connectivity with information.
Is that a phased cost or is that the total cost for meter replacement?
Can you go back? That is a phased cost. We're looking to go at it aggressively because batteries keep dying. And I'm setting a 2-year window and we're planning on using a private contractor. The private contractor's estimate that we've received so far is $107 to do each meter installation, including the administrative work of setting up the appointments with the residents. That's a price that we can't even compete with our own staff.
Yeah.
And we're gonna continue doing them in-house. We're doing that now. We're prioritizing the zero reads.
Yeah.
We're gonna continue doing it in-house, but we're gonna use an outside company, go out to bid for them, and we have a couple of companies so that we know their prices and what to expect. And we're gonna try to knock this out quickly to put this battery situation behind us. And
Thank
give
you.
us all the benefits of the AMI system and the connectivity.
And Darren, just sort of overall cost, about for the project.
For the meters, we're looking at, I believe, $1.5 million, including the radios, which we've already invested in the radios. We have them sitting in the garage. So just under $1.5 million for the meters and another 800,000 for the installation with the third-party company.
We'll
So-
be using water and sewer, customers, so it's coming out of both funds. And will be the source of funds.
I'll ask a question about how did you come up with the NAGOG number? Intake and treatment facility.
The NAGOG intake treatment is we're in a process of, we've had an intake install that went sideways. And so we're still trying to work with our engineering consultant and Bender to untangle it. And we anticipate this is probably not so much capital as far as work that's done, but it could be everything from redesign and potential litigation. So those are where we're coming from.
So you can see, these are the rate increases that we are looking at for each rate step. This might seem shocking to some people, but I just went through this in Lincoln, and I had a table of all the surrounding towns to show what each surrounding town was doing. This is kind of business as usual right now, unfortunately, in the water world. It's the pressure point of all these regulations coming down on the water industry.
Do you have a benchmark that we can see is what our surrounding towns, where they
I
are?
can get that for you. I have it. I can steal it from Lincoln.
Yeah, I think it would be good practice
Yeah.
on all our
But
rate hearings to have.
yeah, I can get that to
I know
you.
it's difficult to calculate because everyone has to
Everybody's a little
different
bit
way to
different,
calculate.
but just to compare directly to Lincoln. Lincoln has a PFAS issue as well.
Yeah.
But we just had to increase our rates without taking that into consideration. Because if we were going to attack a treatment facility at our well, and I plug it into this financial modeling software that we're adopting here, you can see that it wasn't a financially viable future. So even without dealing with PFAS, the path forward for PFAS in that town is gonna be through an interconnection with another community. Even without tackling the PFAS challenge, the rate increase in Lincoln is gonna be 10% for the next 5 years.
How much revenue did we lose from the MCI?
We were looking at.
That's on the slide coming up.
Okay,
We will
sorry.
have a slide, yeah.
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 So you can see we're looking at 12.5% for each rate step, and that's gonna continue, at least with the current plans, from year to year. As we fine tune our plans going forward and we incorporate that rate analysis software, things may adjust a little bit, but I think we're on a solid foundation here.
Does that include the debt service for the 50 million that we borrowed as we start to spend that? Is that what's in there?
Yep. And that's what we're looking at here. Those red lines represent us starting to spend that 50 million.
Yep.
So that represents 2 PFAS treatment plants at the wells, second division in New Cargo, and it represents a filtration plant at Nagog. We have a lot of work to do to figure out what our path forward is at Nagog, and we're gonna leave no stone unturned. But we are proud to still maintain a filtration waiver through I wrote this down because Melissa just gave me this earlier, our award-winning watershed protection plan. And so there are very few filtration waivers in the state of I think there are 2, us and the MWRA.
There's few in the country,
Yeah.
you know, so we're a small minority and, you know, high risk of maintaining it. And we know that, but we have maintained it.
But you have to be a pretty good steward of your environment to maintain those. So we're proud to continue to do that.
So on this chart, so we are getting our reserves up to something like 12-ish million, 11.5 or something like that.
That was the forethought because they understood these.
Yeah,
financial
and that
challenges
goes
were
still
coming.
up to something like 13. Then we draw on that and we draw on, so we have the 50 million and we also had a prior
It
authorization.
was 16 million, and we've spent some of that.
Yeah.
So, we're probably looking at somewhere in the 70 million, you know, 60 to 70 million dollars of needs. The biggest nut is Nagog, and Nagog has the most, I guess. There's not a clear path, you know, we predicted the conservative approach, but we are exploring some alternatives that may be something that's, you know, less expensive. We've also exploring a long-range plan for regional water. So we want to make sure that whatever do is, you know, kind of consistent with the borrowing authorization. Let's be clear, of the 50 plus the additional money from the original borrowing, it's authorization. We don't spend it until we actually need to. And so we have the authorization to proceed, but if our plan changes, you know, and adapts, we can, you know, ideally, if it's less, great, but We don't have an alternative yet, but we are looking seriously at some other things that might reduce that cost. But it's, NAGOG it's complex, to say the least. And that's why we've decided, well, we need to focus on the groundwater wells more immediately. And I will tell you, as far as the regulations go, and you may hear this, so it's good for the commission to understand, there's been a lot of saber rattling at the federal level on infrastructure needs, but also some people might say leniency in PFAS, but it really depends on how you look at it. But right now, there is consideration of an extension, and it's actually quite realistic, to allow communities a little bit more time to comply. And that's necessary because the original regulations were, everybody's we gotta go 0 to 60 in no time. This is gonna give us a few more years, so that allows us to possibly consider with NAGOG, it's not a sprint. So we wanna be more deliberate.
Our timing is bad for the PFAS scene, and the water supplies, public water supplies around the country that had high levels of PFAS over 20. There was actually substantial federal funding available for them to tackle their problem.
Oh,
That's all dried up now. So now you have the second wave of people that are gonna get wrapped up in it with this new 4 parts per trillion standard that includes us. And now there isn't the cushion of the federal money available to us. Will that change? We don't know. If there's a chance that it could change and it affects our timing based on hopes that it could change, we'll consider that. But there are a lot of balls in the air right now as far as that goes.
Yeah.
We have a lot of work to figure out the best way to spend all this money, and that's what our priority is gonna be over the next few years.
And there was a note on the last meeting about the fact that the town did not qualify. We previously were given a state revolving fund, SRF, that was basically a low interest loan, not a grant, but a loan of not to exceed 2%. And as Darren mentioned, over the last 3 to 5 years, those loans were then sort of supplemented with principal forgiveness. There was all sorts of opportunities. Well, that's drying up. The federal money is going to dry up, we know it, and you no longer qualified because of new ranking criteria, including disadvantaged communities, environmental justice communities, and quite honestly, Concord is no longer, considered favorably in competition with some of these other.
It's not a good fit for the state's formula at the moment.
At this point. So anyway, that's just worth knowing, because someone mentioned, that we had lost the funding, and we did. It was only just announced a couple months ago. So that means we will need to consider any borrowing through our own, fortunately, the town is still AAA, but we're not presently in the list for SRF funding for NAGOG. So.
I was successful at getting grants in Lincoln. We have a $400,000, they have a $400,000 grant for that water main replacement for this year, and they're expecting something similar next year. And I did that using one of my engineering consultants' grant teams, and that was effective in the past. So that's something that we hope to continue here. So you can see that as our spending increases, our budget surplus decreases, and you can see based on the projected rate increases each year here in town for water rates at all 3 steps, the water profits, the net income above our expenses does start increasing again. In the future, we're gonna look at this a little bit differently with that software I've mentioned, Waterworth. Instead of looking at net income, we're going to be looking at retained earnings. And retained earnings is gonna be our benchmark for health. I've always used 9 months as a target. The industry standard is 6 months to 12 months, so 9 months is a good midpoint. Unless you were gonna be approaching a spending situation like Concord is now, then getting as high as we could have in the recent years is exactly what you guys wanted to do.
I would say it's fortunate, Darren came on board, so we've been using this financial performa tool. We've shared it over the years with our commission, and it's been our lifeblood of being able to make a case that includes our depreciation, our capital, our operating expense, and what our rates are. And it was designed by our internally through our management analysts and
Thank you. You're welcome.
the director who, back 29 years ago, And it was a very sophisticated model using Excel spreadsheets with multiple pages and links. And it's a beast to maintain. And Bob Hill has been doing that for us. You know, fortunately, the industry's evolved where now there's some third-party software that, you know, are no longer as kind of, you know, high risk of, you know, operator error and that sort of thing. So Darren's used it in Lincoln. It's a great opportunity to us to, you know, switch over with Bob sort of in a position where he's gonna be transitioning on. And the advantage of this Waterworth package is also can be used for stormwater, solid waste recycling. So it's gonna be a really powerful tool across the board for our various enterprise accounts. So it's kind of we have a user, you know, someone who's seen it and, you know, I think,
It made the select board in Lincoln suggest that all the departments move to a more high-tech method of budget projection.
And it's reasonably priced.
Very reasonably priced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, so anyway, that's sort of a good thing for us.
In a few moments, you can tweak your capital spending over years, like take out one capital project and see how that affects you, put in another one. And within seconds, you can see the cause and effect in what your rates are gonna have to do to meet these changes. And it's powerful and easy to communicate, and I think you folks will be impressed when you see the graphs
Cool.
from it.
Good.
Just a breakdown of our customer profile: 56 residential, 24 commercial, institutional, mixed, hospital. And obviously with the MCI prison going out of business, that's a great area, and what will become of that site in the future is a great area, but in the meantime, we do lose some significant revenue. And this is a representation of that. If you look at the rate increase with MCI Concord line versus the line beneath it, you can see that 2023, MCI accounted for 9.1% of our total water usage and almost 30% of our revenue. Without that, you can see our water rate increases have to be a bit more aggressive. Obviously, as they plan and institute usage at that site, things will change. But right now, though, that lost revenue is a reality. This is the two of the main criteria that the DEP analyzes for public water supplies to measure water use efficiency: are residential gallons per capita per day, which is what you're looking at here. The target is 65 gallons per person per day. And you can see we were not under that in 2022. And ironically, that's when the batteries problem reared its head and kind of probably went not noticed as fast as it could because of staffing changes and so forth. So instead of metering water, you had a water that wasn't being metered. And actually, I think I had that wrong. I think that can be explained, the lower number in 2023. If we go on to the next slide, we'll see the opposite. Yep, you can see the 2023, our unaccounted for water increased.
Yes.
And that was the year that a residential gallons per capita decreased. 12.6% because water was going unmetered. We weren't accounting for it.
It's an interesting metric that's part of our permit, which really the regulators wrestle with, the water suppliers wrestle with because of, you know, these issues with meters, accuracy, and, you know, 10% is literally plus or minus. You know, unfortunately, when it's a regulatory constraint, it becomes, you know, more of a tool to then impose more restrictions or, you know, controls. But, you know, there are systems out there 25% unaccounted for. I mean, there's some legitimate
When I got to
problems.
Lincoln, we were at 26%. When I left after 4 years, we were at 9%. And we found most of our leaks in Lincoln weren't in our mains, but they were in the private service lines that extend 2,000, 3,000 feet through the woods. Interestingly enough, Prowler was the company we used for leak detection there twice a year, compared to the industry standard of once every 2 years. That was incredibly helpful for us. They just won our bid here in Concord. And last year, we do this every year. We do the north side of town one year and we do the south side of town the other year. And they haven't been finding too many leaks. I'm curious to see what this contractor finds because he did a great job for us. And Concord also has some areas where the service lines are not short. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah,
I think
it's important, these leaks, the service line, the laterals, both water and wastewater, where the controls are, our water main infrastructure. Useful life, life cycle is 75 years to maybe 125 years is kind of a rule of thumb, depending on the services, they're copper, or they could be old lead. 50 years is a useful life. And so that's part of what drives some of the practices and policy we have when there's investments being made. But again, when we do, we're spending hundreds of thousands, millions on the infrastructure, on the pipes. It's the laterals that have been historically neglected, which is one of the reasons communities are looking more closely at those.
And the laterals,
The lateral, the service
that
lines,
go off
they
the
feed,
main pipe.
yeah, so
To my house.
right, the main pipe is common and serves everybody's need and interests. The laterals are dedicated to a point
Right,
end user.
right. And the leaks you're looking for are in the main, both? the main
Yeah, we
and
look at
laterals?
they find them both. Yeah.
It takes a little bit of a nudge to get the leak detection company to focus more on the service lines than the mains.
Hmm.
But when they do, there can be benefits to
Mhm.
be made. This is our annual water demand in millions of gallons from year to year. This is highly dependent on weather. You can remember that, some of these summers were very wet and not so quite so hot, and you can see which ones based on those numbers, and some were drier and hotter. So we don't know what this summer holds.
Yeah.
If this week is any indicator,
Yeah.
it could be an interesting summer. This is an average how much water our system demands per month on a year-to-year basis. No surprises there.
It is worth sort of connecting to the rates where, for commercial properties, there's an incentive for year-round conservation, process management, doing better. So it has a different set of rates. For residential, the 3-tier conservation rates are only, imposed through, May through October. And again, it's because that's when we see those spikes are what we would consider, it's a term that's used, whether it's non-essential, this is more for landscapes, pools, that sort of thing. So there's some discretion, which is why we have the strong conservation message and price signal. So that's just one of the reasons we have that tier.
And the regulators, the DEP appreciates communities that are employing a price structure that promotes conservation like that.
Do we have a similar chart on a sewer?
Seasonal? No, it's not the same kind of influence, because most of this demand here is for outdoor water use.
Yeah, but I think-
Sewer would be pretty
I'm just
steady,
interested, if I take the seasonal out,
yeah,
so I see something.
this would be, yeah, you'd see
One
something
point
like,
five
Yeah.
million gallons per day.
yeah,
And then the sewer is limited at 1.2 million gallons. per
so,
day.
so just to be
So,
clear,
but we have much less sewer
that's
customers.
correct,
So how do I reconcile it if I have only half of the customers on sewer? Shouldn't we see just on the sewer side, half of the
800,000 gallons a day or
800,000
something,
gallons a
correct,
day?
correct.
If your infiltration and intrusion game was up to date, which we're gonna talk about a little bit later.
Not even up to date, the expectations are so different for the design basis for sewer, when it was installed, was not to be watertight. It was not an incentive, it was,
Yeah, but still, I think if it's,
there's capacity there.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
point, yes.
Okay.
If you plot them both, you could definitely see a relationship between.
So on the, on
Yeah,
the
go
sewer
ahead.
side, where we had 4 months over and above our threshold.
Last year, not.
Last,
this year,
yeah, last year,
Correct.
were these summer months or what months
They
were
were
these?
spring months.
Yeah, the overage was winter,
Into spring.
Into spring.
Winter into spring.
And I guess,
So how can you be then on the sewer over 1.2 million gallons per day? With only half of the customers?
Infiltration and
take-
intrusion.
No, no, but it's more or less, there's taking in 1.5 million, but only half of them, so it would be 750,000 gallons per day. So how can it 750, so infiltration from the outside in?
so no, Sven,
Oh,
yeah,
okay, yeah,
that's right.
sorry. Now I
And
get it, sorry, Yeah,
And also keep in mind that this peak that you're seeing,
yeah,
that's not gonna be going to sewer.
yeah, no, I know that, I was just on a normal month.
But the other thing, Sven, is just 12-month rolling
Yeah,
average.
yeah. Okay,
And so that's
get it.
where the climate, longer drought periods or wetter periods, influence that. And we weren't alone, we're hearing other communities were having exceedances, which is why we didn't see an EPA hammer drop, but again, we're exposed.
But what's scary is you don't tend to hear from the EPA until they do your permit years and years and years later. And then all of a sudden, this data from 8 years ago at the time is now a crisis and they
Yeah.
reflect that on your new permit.
Okay,
Speaking of
Did I just say
wastewater,
that publicly?
yes, these are the facts.
Speaking of sewer, here is our sewer system. You can see it's incorporating the 1/3 of the town in the center. Right around all the rivers and such. Here is our operating expenses for sewer, the breakdown. We employ a management contract with Wood and Curran to operate our wastewater treatment plant. We have depreciation of expenses. We have a lot of infrastructure that's getting older. Personnel services are part of the equation. And this is gonna be something that we're going to be looking at over the coming years to make sure we are keeping this resource up the way we need to. Otherwise, it's gonna look like a certain other wastewater treatment plant in the area that we've been taking a peek at lately.
The other thing, Darren, we like to highlight is depreciation, Sven, when you talk about rates and comparisons to other communities, not everybody actually accounts for depreciation.
It's new to me and I need to learn more about it, but I understand the leverage that it provides. It's helpful.
Yeah,
Here is our proposed capital spending for this upcoming fiscal year. Nothing too big yet, but I will warn you that that wastewater treatment plant is getting older and it is gonna be due for some substantial upgrades in the near future. Not to mention the possibility of taking on an additional wastewater treatment plant. You can see, whereas water, we're looking at a 12.5% increase. Here, we don't have the point pressure of PFAS. We're looking at 5% increases. And here is the.
actually, I wanna go back.
Yep,
The sewer improvement fee right now, we've been told, and I'm aware, it's significantly undervalued. But we are about to go through a process of looking at that fee structure to determine, where it should be. But, we don't have that data yet, but it's really gonna depend on, some of the work that we're doing at MCI is, really gonna be critical to try and inform what is the right value. But, you hear a lot from the business community and residents who see this cost of new flow being introduced to our system. And really that cost is about what will it take to expand the system to accommodate that. And so we had a conversation recently about the amenities building. We have conversations with the residents all the time as far as I'm just adding a bedroom or something. But this fee is intended to provide, the bank for these expansions. But there's gonna be a lot of discussion on what's into the benefit of the community, what will the general fund need to contribute? So this is an area which you're gonna hear a lot more about in the not too distant future.
again, we can see the big red spikes coming up that represents spending at wastewater treatment plant / plants, plural.
and
Even
that
though
includes the MCI,
it
This,
includes the possibility of MCI.
I think
25
we have
million,
we have two different plans. So this is this is without
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 MCI,
MCI?
so we can use our fund balance.
Yes. That's with MCI.
And that's great that you've been proactive, so now you don't have to be reactive with rates. That's a good thing.
But the other one, the with MCI,
Mhm.
those capital expenditure, those expenditures are all to do what?
To take over, accept ownership of the wastewater treatment facility to MCI, inclusive of identified needs for replacement and, primarily replacement, not so much improvement. but its
Mhm.
equipment is all past useful life. So we've done an assessment, and we're looking at a need of, this is a 310,000 gallon a day permit with a need of $25 million of immediate investments. And that immediate is gonna be over a 10-year period, but
And does this plan include potential contribution from the state? Because they're,
this is just a spending plan.
it's just as a,
So.
So
the
if they-
contribution
if they
could
would
be the
contribute-
state, could be
because they're
developers.
taking 1/3 of
Yes,
that for the farm.
yeah,
So, so there's a decision to be made about whether or not what the town takes it on.
correct. And not to be today,
Yeah,
but
of
this is gonna be a
course.
town meeting discussion. There's gonna be a lot of discussion in the fall as we start ramping up to figure out where do we go with this? And it's just the backdrop is without MCI, we are literally continuing to manage the finite resources that we already have that have already exceeded our permitted capacity. And the risk is we get a moratorium imposed on us so that there is no economic growth and development. There is no expansion of, that's just, so we're capped. Whether the governor wants housing, whether MBTA zoning is, if we don't have wastewater. And we've had these conversations with the governor. She's aware of these problems and we're not alone. But this is a big ticket item, not just for Concord, but the region.
Luckily, the federal government is being very generous with funding to states right now.
This, stop me if I'm wrong, but this is an interesting dilemma. Cause you're asking those of us who are not on the sewer system then to be right, to be investing. Please tell me if I'm wrong.
No, we haven't had that conversation
Oh, I
yet.
know, but.
Don't know, but yeah,
Yeah,
potentially.
it would
Do
be,
you want your downtown to expand? Do you
Yeah,
want the
right.
tax base to increase? Do you want the services as part of the community? If so, then
yeah,
there's a cost to that.
yeah, sure. So it'd be
Yeah.
interesting. Who will be the deciders in that?
Me.
Really?
We'll give, staff and consultants will provide recommendations. The town will be, the town meeting.
Okay,
If there's gonna be town funds, if it wasn't, if it was all gonna be through, rate increases to the existing customer base, it would be the Public Works Commission,
right, okay.
right? So that's not, Expected.
But the town will look at our recommendation.
oh, certainly, yeah.
It's gonna be an interesting.
And the state has, the
Yeah.
state has an existing need, the farm has needs.
Yeah.
And if we don't step in, that $25 million investment is up to the state to figure it
Yeah,
out.
wow.
At their schedule.
There's.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, it isn't, it's very interesting. So anyway,
Positive spin.
so those are, I think that's the
You
end
can
of.
see even with, without the MCI plan, you can see there's some investment work to be done at our aging existing plan. So it doesn't head in the direction of the MCI plan.
So on this one without MCI, I see the fund balance going up and up and up and up. Yeah. So what's the kind of a
What's
best
the
practice?
target?
What's the best practice? How much reserve this sewer system of this size should have?
I'm gonna have to call in. I'm gonna phone a friend. Bob? Can you help us, remind us of this? And if we've, this is, Sven, when we get the new software tool.
Then this will change.
This will probably change. I'm not sure if this projection is accurate, where we're gonna have this fund balance, and if it is, what we do is we control it with the rates.
Yeah, then
We don't have-
need,
exactly.
we can slow down. on the
Exactly.
rates.
As I mentioned earlier, the industry standard is 6 months to 12 months of operating expenses. But when we have this huge question mark out there like we have right now, extra is good.
So so we have right now 4.5 million reserve.
That's right. Primarily in the sewer
And-
improvement.
So, and our operating budget was 4 million.
I don't have the number.
3.7.
So we have,
Thank you.
so we have right now,
So just over
Yeah.
12 months. So we're at the high end of the recommended value.
But we also, we're plugged in capital plan, so it's not.
yeah,
year to
no,
year.
but just to understand, if it was status quo without
That's right. What's the target? I've had different recommendations of 30% of your operating expense to have available. But in any event, those are things that I think when we get the new tool and we can start plugging in some more certainty on the capital investments.
And I think I got that 6 months to 12 months from the Waterworth company that does this for a living. I don't think I made it up, so that should be a pretty good number.
And the old 38% of what was Tony,
Sounds like on the website.
that was Tony Legalbo, you know, who had been our finance director for
So
many, many years.
would be good, just, again, what I said also on the water side, having benchmarks, knowing what is
Mhm.
best practices.
Yeah.
And have perhaps 1 or 2 slides around it and how we compare on these matrices,
Yep,
which.
That's gonna
helps
be
to understand
finding out what
better.
towns are doing with their water rates is easy. Finding out this information from
Yeah,
other,
it's-
it would be more challenging.
Yeah, but they must have public hearings too.
Yeah. You're volunteering to research.
Oh, you just upload, what I'm doing is I'm uploading the video links to an AI tool.
Ah, smart.
And within 20 seconds, it gives me what I'm looking for.
Wow. That's brilliant.
Meet Sven.
Yeah, that's
I'm not
brilliant.
listening to 2 hours video.
That's awesome. You have to show me that, how you do that. I was using AI for minutes back in LinkedIn, and even that was a huge help.
So anyway, so that's the, I think we can stop.
How we're
there.
doing, am I going too slow here?
No, so that's basically that was the presentation on the rates.
So that was, if those look familiar, that was largely stolen from the FinCom presentation.
So, and one clarification question, the fees, the public comment referred to, are they part of this schedule, or is this separate?
The fees
That's a
for,
50-year water service line rule.
oh, this is the policy on water service replacement?
Yeah, so that's not part of
separate from
this.
these fees.
Yeah, that's separate. That's
That's
policy. That's right. This, what you're adopting here, don't,
Okay,
you know.
That's extra costs.
okay, now I just want to know if we approve something, would her comment?
No, it wouldn't
be-
prevent a change in
No.
the policy.
Not related,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay,
So
So,
Alan,
that's all.
the main driver of the 12.5% is PFAS, is that correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's primarily PFAS, some on the water mains, not so much, and some on the meter replacement.
And is there a future projection on, I think somebody said we would keep at that level, or are we going to be increasing beyond this? Is this sort of the big bump and then it holds steady?
No, there was a few years we projected at 12.5%, and we'll adjust it depending on the outcome of our alternatives for NAGOG. But right now, I think it was mapped out for 2 or 3 years at 12.5% and then dropping down. Bob Hill, do you happen to, are you
It was
available?
on one of those slides we just.
Was it on the,
it was on
was it
this,
the rate?
on this.
Oh, yeah, let me
Yeah,
go
it
back.
Table.
Back up the slide with the comparison of the MCI rates and that, it's right on that slide.
Okay, yes, hold on one sec, Chris, I'll get that.
Coming
Here.
up shortly.
It's water, here we
There
go.
we go.
So these are.
Oh, I
um,
see it. Yep.
Right here,
Okay. Wow.
okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Like I said, this isn't abnormal in our industry. Public water suppliers are under the same pressures and we're all seeing the same results.
I think it's a question of when they actually face the piper, and, you know, there's a lot of systems that are just hoping it goes away, it's not going away.
So,
PFAS
Yeah.
primarily.
so if we would be able, through a miracle, to connect to the larger water system,
Mm-hmm.
what is their, what are they charging right now on a pricing? Would that be cheaper than this?
Oh, yeah, yeah. So there's a couple complexities. One is the ability to connect requires a certain amount of permitting.
Yeah.
Including
Yeah,
state.
yeah,
and
assuming
all
it
that.
would be, that would be the
Assuming that.
miracle. and
Then
would-
they have, it's called a wheeling cost.
Yeah,
And they come up with a rate to transmit the water.
Yeah.
Through and to you. And we've partnered with a lot of communities around us, including Sudbury, Wayland, Lincoln, We've had conversations with Acton, Lexington, Bedford. So we are all working to figure out a way that might be something which is, one, the long term, does regional water make sense for us all? And we need to start a process. But there may be some things, you know, that could be done in the interim that could allow us to be partially served, you know, from a
So
neighboring.
Bedford
community.
is partially served.
That's right. Well,
Yeah.
Bedford's, you know, they still have a permit, but they are entirely on MWRA.
Oh, they don't
yeah.
use the permit.
They
have.
don't. They have it, they have to keep it available, but they don't use, they're totally MWRA.
But
They're
because-
talking with us.
Because they will water through Lexington. And they're kind of maximizing the water flow through the Lexington water.
And there's no
main
additional
system.
capacity there to.
I'm just
put the
saying,
pipe.
from my perspective right now, without having done a ton of research for Concord, but having looked at this from Lincoln's perspective, if we were gonna get water from another community, it would only be a portion of our needs
Well,
at this point. But if we
portion
could
is
get a
better
portion
than-
here and a portion here, that would be very
If the unit
beneficial this
cost
time
is
of the year.
less.
Correct.
Don't
That's
get
what we
too
wanna,
excited about the
No,
unit
no.
cost. MWR water is expensive. And then, like he mentioned, you add on a wheeling fee, but it's expensive to do all of our things that we're gonna have to do too. It's not gonna be inexpensive.
So that was my question, is it expensive in a way
it's
that,
all expensive. It's
That-
a degree
that-
of.
Yeah,
because our problem is the economy of scale
Mhm.
issue we have, we can't, whatever we do, we don't have to scale. To bring it down to a reasonable unit cost.
and that's the
So,
problem with every small system, and that's why this regional approach is very interesting. But we're looking at a 20-year time frame, so we have to plan as if it's never going to happen. But we have to plan as intelligently as we can to be in the best position we can be if it ever did happen. No problem, it's easy.
Why is it a 20-year time frame?
The infrastructure cost for phase one, which includes Concord and 9 other towns in this area, to get the water main up from the Mass Pike area in Sudbury up to here, was $1.2 billion.
Oh, wow.
So divide that by 10 towns, and then
Yeah.
figure out where federal money is gonna come from. That's
I
gonna
see.
take a while.
Yeah,
But there is an advantage, the money, if there's gonna be money available, is probably gonna be more on regional projects. So
Exactly.
we may qualify for something like that, but you know, the bottom line is, and I'm gonna just continue to, you know, pound this, you know, beat this drum. Water costs money, water, wastewater, stormwater, and it's for everybody. We're not isolated. We're just trying to be creative. And so, you know, by identifying that, it's a cost of, you know, what is gonna stand up communities. The challenge I have is when regulations just add costs without real benefit. And that's where we continue to
echo
push
his
back.
Sentiment.
So, cause we know the costs are gonna be real and necessary. It's just what do we do to mitigate the extraneous expenses, and that's a challenge.
PFAS is found in rainwater from pop-up thunderstorms in Massachusetts at higher levels than the current federal MCO.
yeah, but what I know, and you told me a few scenarios where we might have alternatives, but I would hate that we're spending, let's say, 50+ million on a NAGOC thing. Just then to have.
Agreed. We
Yeah.
agree. So
Yeah,
we're
so-
gonna
On the same
be,
page.
these are,
So
Yes.
although we have the approval for the money, if we can avoid
exactly,
spending it.
Much
exactly.
of the
And
talking we're
potentially
gonna
have-
be doing over the coming years is gonna be about how to best spend this
And,
money.
and how to keep the unit cost under control. That's,
Correct.
I
Yeah.
think, the very high priority.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's important
I
stuff.
had these conversations at my interviews.
Good.
And I was asking the questions.
Can I be a devil's advocate? Just if we're gonna be looking long-term, and I know it's not publicly, it's not at all acceptable, but have we thought toilet to tap?
Yeah,
Is
I
it
have.
been put in?
I have, and I've sat on boards and committees at the state with regulators trying to champion that. But right now, there's lots of building codes and plumbing constraints. And so anybody who listens, I explain, we gotta get creative. You know, they got creative out in California. Singapore is, you know, waste to tap because they had to. at some point, if we have to go there, you know, it's just process. It's water and how high a level of treatment do you want to, you know, sort of, you know, and what's the cost of that treatment? So yes, it's all should be on the table, but there's a lot of regulatory constraints, you know, to that, but Gretchen, we do talk about it.
Okay, just
It's
put it
not
out.
gonna be
put it-
Concord. I can tell you this, Concord is not gonna independently do its own track. There's a lot of, you know, systems in place that we gotta influence.
I know, everyone just keeps looking at the MWRA as like the saving grace out there. Oh, we'll just jump on the MWRA system. At some point, if the whole Metro West area is jumping onto MWRA, you know.
What's nice about the MWRA is they are immune to this PFAS problem. They only have trace defects in their surface water. And instead of a 1-year drought tolerance, like most of us small communities have, they have a 5-year drought tolerance. So they're insulated from the cost of PFAS, and it improves our resiliency in the summertime.
Any more questions? Do I,
And they've been selling less water year to year because of conservation efforts, so they have the supply. That's why they're considering expansion to areas like ours.
I'm just digging myself to get the pipe from Sudbury over here.
maybe it'll be faster than the 20 years. I don't know.
I
You gotta
take the shovel, I can do it in 25 years.
Are there any public?
Oh, Carlin Reed
Okay.
has her hand up.
Hi, thank you. Carlin Reed, 83 Wits End, member of the Finance Committee. Speaking on my own behalf, I have 2 questions about 2 of your water slides. On one of the water slides, you said that this 12.5% rate increase is going to have an average residential customer impact of $96.30. That's about $8 a month. The question for that one is, what do you consider the consumption of an average residential household? How many gallons per month or per year? And so that we can figure out whether, for example, if we have an average household or not.
Yeah, Bob, can you recall how many units? It's in our pro forma. I just don't have it off the top of my head. Do you happen to remember what our
Off the
consumption
top of
is?
my head, right, if I open the performer, I'm gonna crash the meeting. So,
Don't crash the meeting. Tell me later, okay? That's
Okay,
one thing.
fair enough.
All Second question I have, never crash the meeting. Second question is about, again, water. The 10-year operating projections, it looks like income exceeds expenses by about $3 to $5 million each year. First, am I interpreting that slide correctly? And secondly, what are you going to do with the excess income?
Rebuilding the reserve.
Yeah, no, so.
It's going to go into a reserve account for operating expenses, not to go into your capital fund, or how are you going to use that 3 to 5 million excess?
One of the huge concerns in our industry right now is future proofing when you're adding treatment. PFAS came from UCMR4, which was unregulated contaminant study, where they test water all around the country and they test for these compounds of concern that aren't being regulated yet. PFAS came from the last one 5-6 years ago. Now we're in the middle of the next one. The big concern is you spend millions of dollars on treatment now, and when they come out with a new wave of regulation that incorporates new compounds, you're not in compliance with what you just installed. So building up a reserve with all these unknowns in the near future is a good thing. And you can see at that slide, we were negative for a few years when the capital hits from the big spending of the $50 million, and then we drift back towards the positive. But that's going to be adjusted as the future becomes more granular and we start to understand what future challenges are going to be with regulations and what the direction we're taking with treatment. So everything is going to be in flux, and we're going to do the best job we can to make smart decisions for the future.
So that means it's going to be used for operating expenses, not go into your capital fund, right?
Yes, like it is now for these big projects.
Okay, thanks.
That's what's, this 12.5% increase is actually being cushioned by the reserve we have now. Picture if the town hadn't been proactive in the previous years, what we'd be looking at. I think Acton just raised their rates 50% last year, for an example. It's the reality of our industry right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are there more public comments?
Any other public comments? Bob, do you see any?
No,
don't.
that is it.
Okay, do I have a motion to close the public hearing for the water sewer rate?
I move so.
Okay, second,
Second,
okay. All right, so we'll take a roll call vote to close the public hearing. So we'll go with Sven Weber,
Aye.
David DeLong,
aye.
Gretchen Rohrbach,
Aye.
Christine Reynolds,
Aye.
Andrea Solomon, aye. All right, so that's closed. Do we want any more discussion?
I just want to make it for this and all other rate hearings, I want to see more benchmarking, comparison. And just not with the suspicion that you're doing something wrong.
No, right.
It's always nice to
It's,
put it in
it's just to have
perspective.
a North Star to see where we are. And I know it's difficult to have comparable towns because if you're Boston, you have a completely different economy of scale than what we are doing here, but it just helps to inform us better.
Just to touch on that, in Lincoln, I had 2 water rate benchmarks. One was the area towns.
Yeah.
And another one was public water supplies of a similar size.
Yeah.
It was good to see where we fell in both comparisons.
Are there any public comments about? Well, we could make the motion first.
Yeah.
Does someone want to make the motion?
It-
To approve?
Is
You
it
need to vote on the rates now. The rate was
the, the move to approve the water rate schedules, and do you want me to read that?
Sure.
No. I, David DeLong, hereby move to approve the water rate schedules and sewer rate schedules as presented and described in the fiscal year 2026 water and sewer rate schedules memorandum dated June 20th, 2025, as submitted by the Public Works Director, including the noted addition of the AMI opt-out provision identified as W-26-13.
Great.
That was pretty good off the top of your head.
Like that?
Do I have a second?
I use-
Second.
Any more comments anywhere online? No.
No, we are
Okay.
clear.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote on that. Sven Bieber,
Aye.
David DeLong,
Aye.
Gretchen Rohrbach,
Aye.
Christine Reynolds,
Aye.
Andrea Solomon, aye. That was unanimous.
Okay.
Okay, now we get to hear our
Talk
director's
about-
report, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So you'll notice, Darren is the only staff here today, because usually we have the full complement, but we knew it was gonna be the Darren McCollum show.
And they were just gonna heckle me, so this is for the better.
We gave him the afternoon off, but
Okay.
in any event, so now we're gonna be talking the director's report, where last meeting, we ran short of time to even get into water sewer, so this is Darren's opportunity. Darren, we talked a lot of meat and potatoes, so if you can go
That was
through
the hard
this.
talk. This is
Yeah.
the easy talk.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about pictures here.
Okay.
6 o'clock, is that our
Yeah.
Yes.
or as early as possible? Okay.
You are in a comfortable situation that I think
Don't.
never, ever
No,
had someone 35 minutes time on a director's report.
Well, let's give me 10 or 15. Would be good. Look at that photo. It looks like they set that up for months trying to get the perfect shot.
Beautiful.
That's Caitlin out on the boat and that's Melissa taking the photo. That's ridiculous how
I'm
perfect.
having a
that is.
hard time
Where is it?
moving, this is
That's
out
Nagog.
on Nagog,
Really? Wow.
so somehow I'm getting a Zoom workplace connection cycle, so we're hoping we're gonna have
Did
pictures.
Bob open that report?
Let's see, Bob, I think I may get bumped off, are you still there?
Yes, I am still here.
Is Linda there, cause I'm having a connection. Hold on.
Here go the 35 minutes.
Good. My talking is getting shorter and.
I think I no longer have control. Can Linda, you bring up the director's report?
Okay.
Bob, are you bringing it up?
If you would bring it up, Linda, it would be better, because that way I don't have to worry about crashing the whole meeting. Like running the slideshow too.
Okay, hang on, let me get into it.
So if Linda can put that up, yeah, I just don't know why I got dropped, but.
It is amazing how the technology's evolved and how this whole thing, I imagine most of you skipped this course in college.
You
How to
mean
run-
when we were
how to
going
run-
to the word processing lab?
Yeah. how to
In
run
my
a-
day.
How to run a virtual meeting.
Yeah.
So, just while we are waiting
Yeah.
for this, on the website program for trash. We had suddenly, with the new program, so many new clients on this. Did that increase our tons?
Where the hell?
Bob, you're on. So can Linda Bob, can
Yeah,
you
we're
share?
having some. He's here, Alan.
He has to share his screen.
Yeah, because I just, for some reason, it's having me sign into Zoom, which I've never, had to do, so. Or somehow if I had privileges and now. Not. But I'm sorry, Sven, if you could, didn't mean to interrupt there.
Those comes to work, I could do this.
That's true.
So Sven, you were asking?
On the trash side, if you give the volume here in May on the trash disposal in tons. Is that comparable to last year, or did we have now suddenly much more tons? Than the,
More customers.
I would like to be able to give you a concise answer. I don't have it. We can find out. I mean, it's obviously the new program is different.
yeah, I just want to figure
Yeah.
out if.
Yeah,
if
there's
we
more.
still have the same amount, and there were a lot of unbilled customers in the old program.
Yeah, we think we did have a lot of unbilled customers in the old program. So the tons would be the same, but
Yeah,
not
that's
the-
what I-
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have identified that as one of the weaknesses of the old model. Yeah. Bob, are you still there?
Yes, I am, Alan. There's something flaky going on with Zoom right now.
All right, okay, so we'll just go through, we don't have the pictures, you have the story, so.
If I hold these up to the camera.
Yeah,
There
sorry.
you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Roof at the wastewater treatment plant is finished. Geo, our engineer, is very excited because that has been his baby for a little while.
Very
Lead service line replacements are ongoing. We offer the town, if it meets our criteria, we'll do a lead service line replacement for $1,500, which is a considerable savings for the homeowner. It has to meet our criteria. There can't be a lot of hardscaping between the road and the home, things that we could damage. There can't be a fieldstone foundation. There can't be large trees between the water service line by the road and the home. We are not in the business of doing extensive repairs to private property. And we rely on Scott Chalmers and his judgment on these matters. But when it does meet our criteria, we do offer it as a service to our residents. Just understand that by not offering it to all residents can become a complaint for some people, but we try to apply common sense. Yeah.
Go ahead, you
No,
just keep
they're on
going.
it. They're about to
No,
open
just
it.
continue.
Yeah, I would just keep going, Darren, yeah.
Okay, I can't see the photo now. Okay, this is just showing us doing a lead service line replacement on Lawsbrook Road. We use a vacuum excavator to be as least invasive as possible. Dig down to the lead service line, close the curb stop, cut the line, cut the lead service line in the basement, run a cable from the basement out across the street, if it's across the street, to the excavator. And we pull the lead service line out and we follow it up with a copper service line or a polyethylene line. So if it goes well, it's not a bad project, and $1,500 covers it.
Actually, if you can show it, you were effectively sharing, when you had it up there, so people can, if you can talk and.
I was trying to do
Same.
that when I had the
Yeah.
full screen, but no, they're screen sharing.
Yeah.
Can I ask,
Um,
and how many miles or how much lead service lines do we have in town?
I don't have that answer.
I think we have identified somewhere around 200.
Those are
plus
the
or minus.
investigations we have to do. I'm
Yeah.
not sure that's how many lead
I
service.
think it
lines
was
we
somewhere
inspect.
150 to 200 or something like that. Yeah, it's my understanding. Is Melissa Simon Senior on the line?
She
No.
was, I don't think she still is.
Yeah.
This bottom pictures show us doing a hydrant replacement. We try to have all of our hydrants in town functional at all times. They do a great job of that.
Can I just say, you replaced my hydrant today. They did an amazing job, so thank you. It was
We get a
awesome.
lot of positive feedback from our guys. We're really blessed to have a great crew here, and Scott does a great job managing them.
Keep
There we
going.
go. I'm on
Here we
page
go,
4,
Bob.
Bob.
Great.
I'm on page 5, Bob.
6.
I'm on page 6, Bob. Thank you. One more. One more. Without crashing your computer.
Great.
All right.
Yes.
This is showing us replacing a hydrant. This is potholing down to do a service line investigation. The EPA is forcing everybody to do 2-point confirmations on unknowns. You have to verify the material in a basement. And unfortunately, out by the street,
Wow.
this is the best way to do it, out by the street with a vacuum excavator. It's nice to work for a town that has that resource in their department. Not all towns do.
Yeah, it's not by accident we have it. It's a very efficient piece of equipment, not inexpensive, like a $450,000 tool. But this, is, allow you to do precision, test pits. And otherwise you have a backhoe, excavator, all the impact on the site. So this is a real clean way to do it.
Picture what that hole looks like if you dug it with a backhoe.
Yeah, and the impact on the property and in the right of way. And this is one of the challenges with regulations that may or may not be cost efficient. We, as an industry, are making the case if we have good records, we'll prove it. Well, to prove it is a fairly expensive, impactful operation. And, these are the sorts of things that, given all the needs we have, is this, really reasonable or not? But in any event, it's.
Okay, next slide, Bob. There's a lot of investigating work going into the MCI possibilities. This represents some coring that's going on. One of the intriguing things about MCI is the possibility of redirecting sewer flow. That's gonna require the addition of some new sewer mains, and this is some investigating work to see if the soil is gonna be reasonable to work with for new sewer mains.
We've just been given some concepts of potential locations and where that route might exist, and we're looking at somewhere on about a $4 million need. So when you look at MCI, you're talking about 25 million for the facility, maybe 4 million plus or minus for infrastructure to connect a town system to it.
But it shows you how diligent the department is being in doing the research to make sure we make a good decision. Next slide. Oh, you're already there, Bob.
Where would you connect this then now?
So there's a couple scenarios. Some are to intercept the wastewater flow before it gets to the Assabet pump station. So you intercept it and then divert it. But it wouldn't be all the flow that goes to Assabet. The other is from the Assabet, reconfigure that facility and now have a new discharge or pipe that would connect that to the MCI. So those are some of the alternatives that we're looking at.
Right.
This is just some routine maintenance on some of our infrastructure. When things break, they get fixed, but this is a manhole being replaced. Next slide, Bob. This is a leak repair, and I'm just trying to show our guys aren't just guys that jump in the holes and wield shovels. They use some technology. This is Johnny operating the vac truck. This is Evan, who we just promoted to operator after he's gone being very proactive and gotten his licenses to move up to that position. This is him working on our UV disinfection system at NAGOG. And in the middle, they're working on a leak on Great Road over in Acton.
Yeah, Evan's a good example of, it's difficult to hire qualified, good operators with licenses. We have often looked at, interns. Evan came to us as an intern. He started as an intern. He expressed an interest in the operations. We then hired him to work in the trenches, from college to the trenches, knowing that he's gonna get some hands-on skills, and he also has interest in the technology. So we're sort of grooming in-house competent, qualified operators. So it's what you need to do in this day and age. And I think we've, Evan is a success story because he's got a lot of potential
And
And,
we tried to use him as a positive role model, for other operators that could follow a similar path. So that's why elevating him at the opportunity was important to us.
It's cool.
Next slide, Bob. While we're talking about operators, it's just as hard to retain licensed operators as it is to get licensed operators, which you'll be hearing more about in the future. I plan to promote a license stipend thing. It's kind of becoming the industry standard where they get an annual bonus for their licenses. And that would again help motivate some of our operators to get higher licenses, which would be very beneficial to our town. This was a water leak not too long ago in the end of April, just after I started on Phillip Farm Road. That day, the guys had come in early, like 4 or 5 in the morning to work on another project that was gonna be a traffic issue. And they ended up staying till 9 o'clock at night. I used to be in the operation side of things, so that kind of effort is greatly appreciated by me. Next slide. This is an example of improving our resiliency. Geo, our engineer, was kind of the lead charger behind this one, and it's over at our Pilgrim Road Sewer Pump Station. Whenever there was a power outage, we have a pump pit there, a small lift station that was in crisis of overflowing within a short time frame. Luckily, this homeowner was receptive enough to allow us to put this decent sized generator in front of his home. You can see we're trying to be good neighbors, and we've had it wrapped to make it blend in better. There's gonna be another segment of, we painted the balusters. There's gonna be another segment of fence that goes across the front of it and some more shrubs to the left. So he's being a good neighbor, we're being a good neighbor. And unfortunately, last night we had a power outage and it was his first opportunity for this thing to shine. And it didn't work.
Oh.
The 12-volt battery that starts the engine was dead. So we had the supplier out today. They have to replace the battery, and then we have to hope that it was a battery issue, not a parasitic drain issue. So kind of
This had been.
it didn't meet its first current call.
Exactly, but what's interesting is it had been on a routine
Every week it tests.
test.
Yeah.
So, this is the classic startup challenge, so we're,
So it's just funny, we do all this work to be resilient and improve. We don't have to respond now to a crisis situation. And last night we had to respond to a crisis situation. And then we're right back to bringing a generator out there to power up the pump station.
I don't understand, can't they test it to make sure it's?
It runs every week, it tests every week.
Oh,
It's just timing,
oh,
just, you know.
oh.
But we're on it, it'll be fixed, it'll be working.
I hope it's not leaking water.
I hope it's not a parasitic drain, those can be tough to find.
Yeah.
A lot of what we do isn't, again, jump in holes with shovels, it's training and outreach. Melissa and Caitlin are a big part of that, Geo as well. This is an example of a tour that I was able to join and learn with them over at the wastewater treatment plant. The kids were super engaged and asking good questions, and in the middle, that's Jay. He is the Woodard and Curran employee who is the manager. He's a good guy. And I don't know if you can make it out in that photo, but that's a magnet holding the COMAG flock.
It's not a saber, that's what I thought.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't have put the line in there.
No. The force is
Maybe-
with him.
maybe
It's a
Linda gave
magnetic
me-
force.
Maybe Linda gave me too many liberties with this presentation and I shouldn't have done that. But yeah, so that's a state-of-the-art technology that improves coagulation. Particles in water tend to be polarized. This helps us do more coagulation in a smaller footprint. At least that's what I got out of my one tour of the plant. More training and outreach, water resource presentation for 5th grade by Caitlin. And there's a lot of training involved. Every operator has to have 20 hours of training each year to maintain their distribution licenses and their treatment licenses. This is an example of confined space training that we held over at Deaconess. Down below earlier, we talked about infiltration and intrusion. This is camera work that's going on now over in the West Concord area that is viewing our sewer mains for over a couple miles. If you go to the next slide, Bob. Here's a map of the area that they're working. It's over 2 miles of sewer mains, and they're looking at that now, looking for trying to improve our infiltration and intrusion. So we've seen the guys work on a lot of high-tech stuff. If you go to the next slide, Bob. They also get down in sewer pump stations and muck out grease. Let me just tell you that I appreciate my field guys. Next slide, Bob. We talked a lot about NAGOG, and this is, I think our industry is really cool because it's where science hits the road. It's where a lot of technology and innovations are occurring. This is just looks like a sci-fi thing with the liquid oxygen tank being filled up by a truck. This is running our ozone system. It's our primary disinfection up there at NAGOG. NAGOG is a critical component to our summer resiliency. We don't have any, we don't know our current direction, but we are exploring every avenue up there. Right now we have a level 1 water restriction in town. If you go to the next slide, Bob.
How much of NAGOG are we?
Right now, we're not using it yet. We've been on high alert all week because of the weather,
Yeah.
deciding whether or not we could turn it on. Turning it on at the end of a month means we have to do all this catch-up work on sampling because we're engaging our surface water supply.
Yeah.
So if we can get away without turning it on the 28th, that's great. If we have to, we turn it on. With the forecasted weather, temperatures dropping starting tomorrow, we were able to make it. We've been monitoring our tank levels throughout the week, and right now they're about a foot lower at this time of the day than they were on Monday. So that's something that we monitor, make sure we have fire protection. But it looks like we're gonna make it till tomorrow without having to turn on NAGOG. And then at least if we need to turn it on because the weather gets hot in July, we have the entire month to collect all the regulatory samples.
So
instead of trying to
do we
squeeze
know
them.
how much bromide is now in there or?
So the bromide, it's a challenging regulatory.
Yeah.
Control because it's based on a dose of constant use over a year. We use it for.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
So, I think we're around the limit of 10 parts per.
Last year we were under.
Just under. I don't know if it's, we're at that level where.
It would be great if you don't have to send a notice.
It's the notice is just, it's difficult because it's not really helpful to the customer. It's compliant with a regulation, but not good information for the customer, but it's required.
That's how I felt about the lead service line notification.
Yeah, it's the same thing. We get these public notice requirements that regulators like and their council likes, but it doesn't really help our
So,
customer.
but from regulation, so last year I know the frustration was we were under the threshold, slightly
Yeah.
under, and we still had to do it because we had that break and it was kind of.
Yeah,
looking
well,
bad.
it's
So
basic.
if we this year would be again below the 10.
Oh, would we
be
have-
still required to send a notification or is it now?
I don't know. I don't know what the level is at this point.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I can investigate, but if it's below the MCL, then we should get away with only reporting the value and the consumer confidence report twice a year.
And the other
Okay.
thing with NAGOG is when we turn it on, it does create, it's a mixing of surface water,
Yeah,
different temperatures with groundwater. So it creates some impact to the customer.
It's also water flowing the opposite direction through water mains.
Yeah.
Which tends to cause
aggravate.
color issues.
Yeah, so it's not ideal, but if we need it, we need it.
Yeah.
And so that's why
And
it's.
and we're lucky we
staying
have
high.
it. It's.
Yeah.
So the customers on 2A who are actually inactive, doesn't that system serve, that line serve?
It does.
They are the first customers when it's operating, but they're also customers of our groundwater supply all year round.
So they get water from us.
They get water from us year round.
Even though that, and they.
Exactly. So,
Wow.
Yeah, one way or another, pun intended, one way or another.
Nice.
That was kind of good.
We're level 1 now.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to mention. There are different reasons why town, public water supplies have to climb this list. Sometimes it's regulatory based on the state drought declaration. And sometimes it's because of water supply constraints. Right now, we are at level 1 because of water supply constraints. If the state declares higher levels of drought in our region, this climbs with those drought declarations. If we were to able to find an alternate source, will water from another community, perhaps we would not need to be at level 1 right now, or do something in the AGOG with a filtration plant. If we decided that the cost was worth it, we wouldn't be at a level 1 right now. Next slide, Bob. I think that I meant to take these out of the previous presentation and my edits, I think I made them too late in the day, so they're here. But this is where we were supposed to look at them. And now I can just do the brief overview. Residential gallons per capita per day. As we put in more meters with batteries working, we can expect that the 65 gallons per capita is going to become a more challenging target because we're measuring more of our water into each home. Next slide. Same thing for the unaccounted for water. As we install more meters, we can expect these numbers to get better because we're measuring more water. Next slide. We've already seen this, been here, done this. Next slide. So I chose that picture to end things just to show you that 24/7, our guys are on the phone, ready to go. Super Bowl Sunday, Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving. They're going to cookouts and not drinking because they're on call. It's appreciated. Last night, two of our guys were out, including Scott, were out until 9:30, chasing down power problems that were interrupting our operations at one of our wells, Robinson Well, and sewer lift station. So their dedication and their commitment is greatly appreciated by me and I'm sure the whole department.
In the town.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. That was a lot. Thank you for preparing.
I can take the summer off.
Yeah, chill out. That was excellent. No, it's good for us to hear about all that. There's also a tremendous amount of work going into the 250th, which I know Sven had thanked everyone for, but every time I look back at those pictures of that day, knowing you guys were staying overnight some nights, like it was just a whole week of work. I mean, months and months of work culminating in a week where you had to get it all online, and that was a tremendous amount of work, and I hope you're receiving a lot of appreciation. 'Cause you
My
just-
guys are, I think that was my first week on the job, so I'm not trying to take too much credit. As a matter of fact, my boss told me to stay home. He knew what was best for the community.
Rest up.
We'll disrupt it.
So, yeah, that was excellent.
I just want to say that it's much less stressful being the water expert when he isn't sitting in the room, but it's equally nice to have him answer the questions when I'm like, because he's been here for a minute.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
All right, any more commissioner comments about anything?
You guys, got anything?
We're 15 minutes.
Look at this.
Yeah, look at that. Do
I feel frustrated. Unbelievable.
Well, we had.
Finally, a commissioner.
I don't like to talk as much as Alan does.
I tried at the German van, couldn't make it, and here comes Andrea.
Well,
It's,
you had like a
Finally, we have
ton on the
chair-
last.
Finally, we have a
agenda.
chair who's like able to deliver. Can I make a motion
Please.
to adjourn this meeting?
second,
All right, we'll do roll call vote to adjourn. Ben Weaver,
I.
David DeLong.
Aye.
Christian Rohrbach,
Aye.
Christine Reynolds,
Aye.
Andrea Solomon, aye. That's unanimous. All righty.
Good summer.
Very good.